Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sharp Cuts. Can't believe we've made it this far. Josh, my partner in crime, Josh Nichol from Passin Dimes, me, Garrett May from Yes Guy Gaming, joining forces to make Sharp Cuts. Josh, I can't believe we've made it this far. We run this volleyball talk show combining the interview style of Josh Nichol and the don't know what I'm doing, chirp everything style of Garrett May of Yes Guy Gaming to make this show. So surprising we've actually kept it going this long. Nobody's actually come after us so far. So still waiting on that, though. Hopefully it doesn't happen this week, because that would be terrible. But anyways, enough of that. I'll throw it over to my guy, Josh Nichol, to introduce our guests for this week's episode. Josh, take it away.
Yeah, I think we're on episode 8, which is awesome because further than we probably thought we'd get. And, there's little confirmation points along the way, Garrett, that you're doing a good job. Like, every once in a while I'll get a text or a message, be like, hey, that was a great episode. But the thing that really sticks out to me is the level of guests we can get. That's how I know we're doing a good job, because we have 2 awesome guests today that are just going to blow the ratings away. Like, I expect double the numbers this week, Garrett. So the first guest has accomplished a lot. We'll keep the bio short so we can, start the show. But she played for the University of Kentucky. Go Wildcats. She played for our national team indoors and on the beach. She's played many years of pro and now is a big part of the Preds Volleyball Club in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Pavin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And she helped recruit another guest. So this isn't just friends helping friends anymore, Garrett. This is like the whole volleyball community is coming together. So this, I guess I should say athlete. She probably identifies as a coach now, but as an athlete, played at Waterloo University, studied coaching, and went out west. So a Canada West athlete with the, I was going to say Golden Bears. It's not Golden Bears. It's the U of A Pandas. And we can get into that when we get going. And is now an assistant coach with Queen's University. Also done some Team Ontario stuff. Please welcome to the show, Natasha Spaulding. Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Holy, long bios. Like, the show's over, Garrett. That's the hour.
Yeah, Josh, I can't believe you managed to secure guests of this caliber. I would like to say, and maybe it segues into our first discussion topic, Josh, we can get to that, but our first female guests. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate that 8 episodes in, we've never had any women on the show. Feel free to chirp us in the comments anywhere for that, or just on the show right now, both of you. But maybe that's a bit of a segue. I'm not sure. Josh, I'm excited to get going. What are we getting into?
Well, I can't confirm or deny, but there may have been a ghost episode where we messed up the quality that there was a female guest on, but it never made air, so we can't confirm or deny. But anyways, stuff happens every once in a while. But for this week, first confirmed female guest, we thought nothing would be better than to talk about women in sport, and we can go down a lot of avenues. But where I wanted to start, because we have U Sports athletes, NCAA level athletes, we have people coaching in the sport. I just want to talk about, first of all, the level of support you got, because I think it's a touchy subject right now with equality and things like that. So I know neither one of you likes to be put on the spot, but Becky, maybe we could start with you as an NCAA athlete. You went to Kentucky, which as a casual fan, I would label that a basketball school. So maybe you could let us know what the women's volleyball team felt like support-wise, and we can kind of, like, instead of speaking in hypotheticals about, the sports, they don't get equal treatment or whatever, tell us firsthand what your experience was.
Well, I mean, so I would say that the sports, I'm not saying male, female just yet, don't get equal treatment. We have the main sports that get like a ton of gear, a ton of hype. You're flying, I mean, I took like 3 commercial flights my entire time at Kentucky because we chartered everywhere.
What?
And yeah, we took private jets to all of our tournaments, or all of our games, sorry.
What the heck is going on? Private jets? What?
Yeah, they had the best snacks too. Like, we're not talking peanuts. Like, we would try to sneakily get the cookies. Those were the good. That was the good stuff.
I'm immediately jealous.
But looking at the NCAA women's basketball tournament, that abysmal weight section, that's not what I experienced. We were one of the top 3 sports at the University of Kentucky. So men, or let's say 4, men's basketball, men's football, women's basketball, and women's volleyball, I would say, were some of the bigger sports at the school. And we never felt like we didn't get anything from our athletic department. So I'm looking at this whole NCAA situation, and from my perspective at my university, I'm thinking that was an NCAA problem, because University of Kentucky treated us like queens. Like, we were in the same facility as men's and women's basketball, and we got all the perks that they had. They had the best, newest weight room, the best, newest athletic training room, underwater treadmills, in-ground hot and cold pools, and all of this stuff that we got to reap the benefits of too, including a brand new dressing room that was done the year before I got there.
Immediately regretting my choice of school.
Yeah.
No offense, Western.
I know, and
Sorry,
I went back for alumni weekend for the first time, and it was just sickening how much better it is now. Like, you don't think it could get better, but it has. But what I really commend Kentucky for doing is when they made that Joe Kraft Center for the basketball team, they made mirror image men's and women's sides for basketball, including the locker rooms mirror image. The training gym was mirror image. So they tried to make it equal for both sides, which I think is pretty unique to that school.
I mean, mad respect. I mean, I will say that's kind of mirror image. I mean, if I can share my experience, at Western, the women's team got way more stuff than we did. And I mean, for good reason. Absolutely. They deserved it. They actually won and were good. I mean, equals probably better, but if you're going to, I mean, they were kicking our ass, and they reminded of us too. They were like, hey, we get our own buses everywhere. You guys got to take the short bus everywhere you go. We're staying in hotels. We get these tournaments. It's like, okay, that's enough. Thanks.
Oh my God. No, that didn't happen. I mean, you can't really compete with popularity when you're at Kentucky for basketball or football. Like, those sports also pay for pretty much all of UK athletics. So, I mean, do you really want to split hairs? Like, they got one more pair of shoes than me. I got like 3, and
that's
they got
it. One more pair of shoes. You're done. Forget it.
Like, I don't know. I was shocked to see that because that was never my experience. But volleyball, there's no male equivalent at most NCAA schools. So who knows?
Fair point. And Garrett, your comment, like for the listeners, you're not popping off. Like I believe at Western they have a tiered system, right? Where like men's football would do very well, women's volleyball would be somewhere in the middle. And you guys were
I'm always popping off. Like they know that, and we need to reaffirm that. But yeah, what I'm saying was true. It just happened to be this time. Yeah.
How do you even decide that?
There's a tiered system in U Sport. So like sports are automatically tiered as G1, G2, and G3 sports. So like G1 sports, I think you have to pay a certain amount, but then it's like they have certain standards of that they have to abide by when they're producing their sporting event. So like, for example, if you're a G1 sport, you have to be webcast. So at Western, volleyball isn't a G1 sport anywhere. It's a G2 sport. So like at Western, they don't have a live feed on their game day because they don't have to. But if you're a G1 sport, you have to, which is super interesting. So there is like a tiered system across the board, and then within Ontario too, which is super interesting.
Who knew?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, so I guess some people think volleyball is a boring sport. I don't get it. I don't know why, but I mean, maybe that's why we get relegated. But I'm not sure. Was that what you mean by support, Josh? Like in terms of just financials, like what you're kind of getting in terms of from these institutions? Or were you talking more just kind of support in terms of pushing you into the sport, keeping things going, the encouragement to kind of stay and support and remain part of the community?
Well, I think support was the one, because Becky brought up the weight room issue, and I think that was a clear one where it's not the same. And I think, you know, we could go down a different path and say sometimes it just comes down to a business decision, because Becky mentioned like the football team, it's not even debatable. They fund the whole athletic program, and that includes like men's volleyball isn't self-sustaining, men's baseball isn't self-sustaining at most schools, right? So the football team is the athletic department, right? So I don't think it's an unfair thing. If anything, football could complain more, but that's not how the athletic department does their budget, right? Like, so breaking down the sports that way, but I think Becky's experience doesn't say the same thing that other athletes are maybe complaining, saying like, oh, why do they get this? It's like, well, you guys were treated really well, and your sport was treated like professionally, right? So I'm curious, just before we wrap this one up, Natasha, if you want to share like the U Sports example, like when you were at Waterloo or when you were at U of A, like was there really any difference, or did the athletic department try to make everybody feel like they had a competitive advantage and they were cared for?
Yeah, I think it was really similar to Becky. I mean, we weren't flying private jets anywhere.
No private jets?
We had further to travel.
I know that is shocking. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody is in Canada. That'd be awesome. Go to that school. I can't say that there is anything huge that I would notice between men's and women's sports at any school that I've been to. But I think it's more like small differences. So like something that we've talked about quite a bit is like the men always playing before or always playing after the women. So like that issue I think is super interesting to think about, and like what's the reasoning behind that, and like going to U of A and having that schedule flipped in like the first half and the second half is, I think, something small, but it makes a really big difference when you think about the logistics behind it and the reasoning behind it, and like creating some equity between men and women. And it doesn't seem like a big deal necessarily. And
feels like the opener to a concert.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like when I was working out at U of A, Lori was telling a story about how basically a fan came to her and was like, "Aren't you tired of being the opening act for the men?" And she was like, "Oh." She hadn't really thought about it before. I think she was kind of a young coach at the time, and then she like really had to fight to like play after the men, which is seen as a disadvantage. But it's also cool because when you're in nationals, like you don't necessarily have that much time to prep, or like if you're playing different tournaments, you might have quick turnaround time. So it's really like you're doing a service for your athletes by giving them a different playing time, playing slot. So I think the differences are just smaller in Canada.
Yeah, well, and to your point, a lot of the men's teams are trash out there, straight garbage. So them playing in the marquee slot makes no sense in a number of ways, not least of which is they suck.
Did you feel too much pressure playing after the Western women?
Like there were years where we were both good. For sure. Like they won in my first year. They were better. They were the best team. And we were playing after them. But no, we didn't. But I can imagine a team that is trash. And I'm not going to say it. Maybe I should say some names here and just really call some people out. Like, hey, your team's garbage and you're playing after your women who are legit.
I can think of one.
You can think of one?
Yeah, I won't say it.
I'm thinking U of T, and I'm not afraid to shout them out. John, get your stuff together over there at University of Toronto. Your men need to pick it up, bud.
I don't like how you're calling him out by name, because that guy is a ginormous human who could probably break both of us. So
we already had a great story about him on a previous episode where we talked about how intimidating and big he was. So we've established that. Hopefully listens to that one and not this one. Sorry, John.
Fair. I think the game time thing is a funny one. I would almost prefer to go first, because the amount of times like a match went 5 before us and you like warm up, sit down, or it just drags on, versus your warm up time, you're up first. Like I don't know, if somebody told me we're the opening act, I think it was actually easier to plan your performance going first. So that's interesting to hear both sides of that.
Yeah, I think if you look at it from like a spectator standpoint, like people are going to show up for the later game because it's like, I'm going to go out to Morty's and get wings, so I'm going to miss part of the women's game, but then I'll get there for the men's, You know
what's stupid though is that is the thought, and it makes sense to me, but in practice, at least in my experience, I see people show up for the 6:30 slot or the 6 slot and then leave after the first game. Like, just peace out, because like, well, maybe that's because the men were garbage and not entertaining, but I see that happen quite a bit as well.
I think also they just don't want to stick around for the warm up in between the games.
Yeah, like how boring is that?
They're like, oh, boring.
Who wants to watch guys pepper for 20 minutes? Nobody.
Exactly. But yeah, so I think that people will show up and be like, oh, we'll catch the last set of the women's game, or we'll have another beer at Morty's. Yeah. And then
where is Morty's? It sounds like I gotta go there.
I'm sorry, have you not been to Morty's?
No, I gotta find my way to Morty's. Where is that? I'm out. I'm lost.
These are the
wings
best
are amazing.
Wings. Best wings.
Where are we talking? Toronto? We talking somewhere else?
University and King. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I should know that. I used to work near there, but okay. I mean, hey, everybody meet at Morty's before the next game. COVID reminder. Okay, moving on.
Let's call our friends at Waterloo, Garrett. We can do a live hype up show before, eat wings, and then we can go to a Waterloo Warriors game. Like, can
I come to that? Because that's what I live for, those wings.
How many friends do we have in Waterloo? Like, could we fill that place, or is it going to be just you and I sitting there being like, "Hey, do you want to listen to us?"
Wings?
Oh my God, I'm offended. Here I am.
Well, listen, that means a lot that you would say you would show up and join us for some wings pre-game, the Sharp Cuts.
I'd be there for the
show.
Wings, yeah.
But it's probably just for the wings, not for the company, right?
Come for the wings, stay for the Sharp Cuts.
And Josh, maybe.
Right, makes sense. Yeah, I get it. That's why I was there anyway.
So I think the other layer of support would be, though, like I ate my own words where I popped off and said, like, all these people talking about a weight room, why don't you just watch the game and show support, and that might actually help them get sponsors and stuff. Garrett, I got to tell you, I watched a women's basketball game. I know players now. It was good. The level was entertaining. Like Dahani Carrington from Baylor, like if there was jerseys available, I might consider buying one because she's an absolute killer, and now I know players, right? And I think credit to ESPN and TSN for showing it, because the production value actually does help you watch a game of that level. And when the commentators know what they're talking about, I kind of got into it. So I think that's the other layer of not just men's and women's sport, but I think volleyball in general. Like I tried to run a beach league here in Toronto, and everyone's like, oh, I would love to watch our beach players play live. Okay, Sunday night at Beach Blast, come. Oh, I'm busy. Like I can't make it. I can't do this, right? So I think if you're going to be a fan and you're going to, talk this big game about like, oh, we got to support these athletes, you actually have to go out of your way and watch them and support them. And like, if we could pick a Waterloo game and go to Morty's and then pack the gym afterwards, or there's got to be somewhere in Kingston to get wings. We can support Natasha too. Like we can do whatever, but there's got to be a way to get butts and seats and people supporting it and making an atmosphere. Like that's the missing support, I think, is people will share stuff on social, but they don't follow it up with action very often, in my mind, at least.
I think that's completely true. And like, from my experience at Kentucky, we had like decent fans, but I didn't really see a big uptick until my very last game, where we like filled our stadium, and we shared the same stadium as the women's basketball team. And it was the first time in my life that I'd seen the second bowl of our stadium. And I'd been like the next day after that Sweet 16 loss, I was recognized for the first time in the mall.
Ah.
Whereas like you would see 40-year-old men getting an autograph for their 2-year-old son, like standing outside of the men's basketball dorm with like a basketball to sign. Like they were like, I don't want to be stalked. I'm not saying that, but I make a little recognition. Like it's not like you see a 6'4" blonde girl walking around every day. Like I'm pretty recognizable. But in Kentucky, it was like basketball goggles from fans.
I think too, there's a little bit of a lot of onus that's put on like us and our programs to be out in the community and like get things done and build that where we are. Like nobody's going to give that to women's sport because we don't see it on TV. It's not easily accessible, like at all. You have to go search for it. And so I think like Dawn Stalley, she was on the Playbook too, which is really, really cool, on Netflix. She just went out into the community and was like, I'm not going to get any recruits here until we get fans in the stands. And like, in order to get fans here, we have to get people in our community to actually give a crap about women's basketball here.
Well, and that kind of brings an interesting question. And that's what immediately where my mind goes is like, we struggle with this in our sport generally. Forget about the male-female thing, just generally. So, I mean, it kind of brings up a good question in my mind is like, okay, so what is it that we can do to really say, hey, this is freaking exciting. This is worth watching. Let's put this in front of people because it's great. I mean, we argued about this the other day, Josh, on one of the shows about like, what do we need? Do we need personality? Do we need talent? Do we need commentary? Do we need production? Like, what are we taking? What are we narrowing in on saying, hey, let's throw this out there. People need to see this because it's great.
I think you need some understanding. Like you need people, like, I don't know if anybody watched the Athletes Unlimited in the States that was going on last month, but they did an amazing job, the commentators, of explaining what was going on. So a lot of people don't understand volleyball. They see a ball go out of bounds and they're like, why did the point go to the other team? And you see the biggest sports that we see out there, there's a lot more understanding. So like basketball, easy to understand. Sorry, basketball players. Hockey, tons of hockey players in Canada. Everybody understands it. Baseball, easy to understand. Run around the bases. Got it. Like, so in volleyball, there's so many weird things happening, I think, that when you don't understand something, it's harder to like. And yeah, the commentators need to do a really, really good job of like keeping the people there and explaining what's happening, at least early on in the sport. And you always see a resurgence, like a surge of interest after the Olympics because of the beach athletes that are shown, and everybody's like, this is so cool, but then it drops off again because nobody gets it.
Yeah. I think that we need better production value too. Like, I think you're right. We need better understanding, but I think that people need to care enough to try to understand it. And I think that like for example, like I went to Nashville and saw quite a few hockey games there, as my brother was there for a bit. And people in Nashville didn't necessarily know all of the rules of hockey, but they loved it. Like the arena's packed. They've got their little claws out with the penalty kill, and they're like doing all the things, right? Because it's fun, it's experience to go to the game. And so I think that like with volleyball, we just need it more visible. Like we need to do a better job, and especially in Canada, I think the NCAA actually does this pretty well. But we just need to build up a better following of marketing who our athletes are, because we have some awesome athletes here, and we just don't have anywhere to show them off except for like our live stream that nobody watches except their moms and dads. And they already think that they're awesome.
Yeah. And typically the live streams are like a camera up in the corner of the gym. So like the feed's not that good. So unless you're invested, why are you going to watch that? You need like the zooming in, the shot, like showing the people up close, attacking the ball, like replays. Yeah.
All right, well, challenge accepted. If there's anybody out there watching who somehow happens to be hiring and looking for people to run streams and commentate, you got 4 people right here who are eager, ready to go. Give us a call. Sharp Cuts is ready to answer.
I don't think I have the skills, but I'm there. I'll commentate.
You don't have the skills. All right. I mean, sure you do. What are you talking about?
Like I can't do production value. I'm a math teacher. I don't know.
Well, I'll let our viewers be the judge of whether we are capable of doing production value just based on what you're seeing right now. We'll leave that up to your interpretation. But Josh, speaking of sharp cuts, we really haven't had many sharp cuts, and I'm kind of in the mood, so I'm going to throw one. Look at you throwing out the topic to start the show that nobody can disagree with. Are you kidding me? Of course, like we need support for women's sport, athletes, all that shit. Like nobody. I mean, I don't want to say nobody, but like anybody going to come on the show and disagree with that? I don't think so. Get off Sharp Cuts.
Fine. You know what? You want to pick sides? I'll pick sides with you. Let's
go, Josh.
Let's talk athletes converting into coaching, because you and I are on opposite sides, because you're a world champion and you started coaching. So in my mind, I always use like Wayne Gretzky as an example, being like, past athletes, they're not good coaches. They're too natural. They don't know what us dummies had to go through. That's why we're better coaches, because we had to grind and learn. Where, I don't know, what were you guys, just tall and good at volleyball? So you don't know what it's like. So there, Garrett, I've drawn the line where I'm a better volleyball coach than Becky, because she was just naturally gifted. She doesn't understand our sport from the level to teach it to somebody less athletic than her. So let's talk about it, Garrett. Transitioning from athlete to coach. Let's pick some sides. Let's get some hot takes going. Becky, do you want to start as the tall person on the call?
Yeah, well, first of all...
We should, because size matters.
First
Absolutely.
of all, you're assuming that I was naturally good at volleyball. My own father told me I wasn't good enough and kicked me out of the gym, closing the door on me when I was in grade 7. So, like...
Dad? Paul?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Is like one of many instances of me and Paul. But I was so bad. So I think that I had the struggle. I may be 6'4", but I was an ostrich. Like I couldn't do anything.
I mean, you said it. None of us were going to go there, but
we got some sharp cuts against yourself, but it's still
self-cut is a common issue here.
Yeah, it was bad. And so I don't know. I understand the whole, like, if you were just naturally gifted, it's hard to be a great coach because you don't know how to help somebody who's struggling. But I also think that if you really care about coaching, you can educate yourself and learn how to help those people, those athletes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really nice sentiment, and I think it's one that's super nice for the show, and I think you're going to earn a lot of fans with that comment, and I'm going to maybe burn some bridges here. Josh, did you ever play?
Yeah, oh yeah. Nothing above club. Club was the peak.
You played
I thought
club.
you were about to say middle school, to be honest. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the people who get into coaching often are the ones who weren't good players, and the people who aren't good players say it was, it's because, you had it easy and I had to work at it. Now I'm the coach. That's a classic argument, Josh, and I'm calling you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't even have middle school. It was so rural that we had public school and then you went to high school. There wasn't a need for middle school.
Yeah, what's middle school?
Maybe Natasha can be the neutral one on this, like as a high level player, but you transitioned to coaching really quickly and actually studied it for your was it a master's at U of A? I said it on more research, but as somebody who maybe didn't, become a world champion like Garrett before he transitioned into being a coach, maybe you can be the middle person here and just explain your journey. And was it difficult transitioning? Was it easy? Like, did it happen quickly? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was interesting. Like when I started volleyball, I also sucked. I didn't even like it. I wanted to play basketball. Like I did not like volleyball. The only reason I played it was to win Athlete of the Year in grade 8. And then I got just tricked. I got tricked for the rest of my life into playing it. And now I coach.
That's a nice move, by the way, though. Play just to get Athlete of the Year. Familiar with that move.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done that.
No big deal. Drayton Heights, Athlete of the Year. Look it up. So yeah, anyways, from playing, yeah, I tore my ACL 2 times, and going into my last year of playing, that's kind of what like pushed me into coaching. And I met with Lori. I was like serendipitously in Alberta, and I met with her, and she's like, yeah, like coaching's really hard. You might not want to do it. Like you got to travel all the time. You're away from your family a lot. Like you're working super long hours. It's not very cool. Like it's not as fun as being an athlete.
It's not? What? That's why Josh got into coaching.
Yeah. This is the highest level I can compete at, Garrett. My body was not going to get me here.
That's what I'm saying. It's not cool. What are we doing?
But yeah, I don't know. It was tough at first because I felt like I was going to be just naturally really good at it. And I very, very quickly learned that like I knew nothing and was very dumb. And so I basically just spent like a year just watching and being like, oh my goodness, I know nothing about volleyball. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of what happened. So I'm not even sure if I'm a good coach, to be honest. You probably have to ask
You
me.
are.
Well,
I'll
you're
speak
bringing
for her.
the
She is.
coaching education level here up just a significant notch with the master's in coaching. I'm not sure that we're really rocking any sort of pedigree like that. Maybe some coaching levels, which I will say on the show, I have no coaching levels. So to this day, I'm not certified in any way for your college coach. So I'm not really sure I have much credibility at all.
Well, I mean, I think that, yeah, you could be right.
No, it's okay to say. I mean,
I've never seen a coach. I don't know. We just met.
It's funny that the different perspectives, and like as a player, somebody would say to you, yeah, coaching is hard because like my perspective would be like the whole time I played, I'm looking at the coach going, man, that is so easy. You just have to sit there, you tell people what to do and they go do it. You don't have to deal with the pressure of like, dealing with things in the match. Like you have to get set for match point and you got to put it away. Like coach doesn't have to deal with that. If team wins or loses on that, what's the pressure on coach? None. And so as a coach transitioning, I felt like the pressure was just completely off me and I could really just focus on helping the teammates. Maybe that's not a common opinion though.
No, I have so much more respect for coaches after coaching 12U all year. Love my 12Us.
Do you though?
Argument with my boyfriend a couple times now. It's a very heated debate because he is really into football and like cares a lot about football coaches and turnover. I don't know very many football coaches. But anyway, we're talking about the debate of like, is it better to be like the top tactical X's and O's person or be like the emotionally intelligent, can run a team, can understand, can communicate person? And I'm pretty firmly on the line of like, if you're an emotionally intelligent person and can work with people, you can learn the X and O's. Like you can work super hard at that. But I think it's really hard to go the other way and like learn people. But we have had this debate like relentlessly. That's something I feel like I've learned about coaching along the way is just like coaching people so much more than the X's and O's of the sport.
Well, that might be a reality of the sport as well, because if you look at football, how technical it is in terms of the plays and where people need to be at what time, that if you drop a shit sequence, you're going to get your ass kicked, right? Like, whereas in volleyball, coach draws up a terrible play, runs terrible practice all year, somehow has the best player in the league attend their school or on their team, and they get set a high ball from the back line and pound it off the left hand and into the antenna for match point. It's like, who gives a shit about the system there? Like, as long as that person's going to get it done for me.
I feel like that's not a hypothetical. That was your
Yeah.
university career. That was too specific to be a hypothetical.
I may or may not be speaking from personal experience, but
This seems better.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes that person has to hit it from way off the net too, because their beach partner's garbage at setting. No, I'm not going to say any names, Dan. But would anybody on this call take the perspective that the X's and O's are more important? I don't think so.
I don't think in sport, like my own journey, I was in such a race to get the levels because, my tier 2 bronze medal wasn't going to get me credibility like Garrett May, right? So I had to get my levels. I had to get coaching experience. I don't think the kids care. They want to know that you're invested in them. You can make them better. Like, Becky, do any of your 12Us care that you played overseas or know what that is or that you're on the national team? Like, they just want to do vol as a warm-up.
They found out 2 practices ago that I played professionally.
That's my first line. Hey, everybody, I'm Garrett. I'm a world effing champion. Respect me.
No, I was like, hey, I'm Becky. I coach volleyball. And then, like, I was talking about playing in the World Championships in Italy in 2014. They're like, you played in Italy? And I'm like, oh my God.
I played in Italy, but I played in the World Championships. I think you're missing a point here.
Their eyes were like this, and they're like staring up with me, breaking their necks because they're all like 4'0".
Oh, okay. That's a point. You got to command respect from those 12-year-olds. Hey, do you know how big of a deal I am? I'm Becky.
I made 12-year-olds run lines this year.
During timeouts? Are you the one who does it during timeouts?
No, for not calling the ball.
But not during a timeout, because that would be mega hang up the call right now move.
Have you ever seen it? Either one of you, Becky or Natasha, have you seen a coach make the team run lines during timeouts? Because Garrett has, and he's not letting it go. We're on the hunt to find coaches who do this.
I have heard of it. It's like a myth. I've heard of it.
I've
never seen it.
Along the end line, like do some sort of
sprint. No, like real run. Like,
that's like activation. That's not like punishment.
And it's kind of dumb too. Like it's not like you weren't standing there doing that the whole game. Now do that. No, stop that.
Yeah. So like they're on the court and they're running sprints.
Yeah, like timeout.
Did they lose?
Timeout. And lines.
What?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I've been punished privately in practice later.
I don't think you can do that.
You absolutely can. Well, listen.
My athletes, when they have one pinky toe on the court in a timeout, it's like, whistle, get off the court.
Easy there. I'm really not sure if we're ready to dip our toe in the over the line, metaphorically, of the ref situation. We got some ref friends. I want to talk about it at some point, but I don't know if we're ready. But in college, it's a little bit more lax. It's like, hey, if you want to have your guys run lines in a timeout, go for it. Nobody cares.
This happened in college?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait, I'm not sure if that makes it better or worse because you're not kids anymore.
No, they're adults, and they're running suicides and lines in a timeout. So
that's embarrassing.
I mean, I think that's where you got to look, Josh, and say, if this person was a former player who transitioned to a coach, they probably wouldn't be doing this.
Well,
sorry. I mean, some of the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking our sport is kind of unique that way that I think we need former players to be coaches because to go back to Becky's earlier point, the understanding where you can be like a decent hockey coach or like people think they understand football and have never played. I think most of the NFL fans are people who have actually never played football, myself included, right? So volleyball, I think if you're going to give up that much time and be away from your family and do that stuff, you might as well be a former player because you have a better grasp. Like I think parents who volunteer to coach their kids' team because they like volleyball, I have so much respect for them, but you can tell they're just lost at times, right?
Yeah, but at least they're not making their kids run end lines in timeouts.
Well, I mean, I think it depends. Maybe their coach did that. Like, maybe that's how they learned to coach. Is maybe they were running lines from their coach, and then that was like, that's how they coach now.
Shit, Josh, it's the hereditary move. We got to find the source. We got to go right to the history and track it down.
This just got real deep.
Are you against myself, though? Do you guys know who John Cook is? He's the coach of Nebraska, one of the most successful programs in NCAA, and he never played volleyball.
It's an interesting one.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Russ Rose may not have played either.
Well, so this is my thing with coaching and success as a coach, because I feel like players, when they go to become a coach, I feel like there's naturally some sort of player development leaning attitude there, because as a player, you want to improve, you want to get better, and you can at least help or know that that's a desire in your players. I often find, though, that the coaches who are better at recruiting, which has nothing to do with volleyball, and getting people to come to their program and play for them, like the best players, either in club, which is a thing now, or at university college, are end up being the most successful, which in a lot of ways, you could be the worst X's and O's coach of all time. But as long as you get the best players to come to your program, you're going to be doing all right, which I hate so much as a former player because I want to help these guys get better and help them win. But I find I'm not able to do that.
Because they don't want to play for you?
People didn't want to play for me because I'm not a smooth talker. I don't know if you've noticed. We've been on the call for about 35 minutes. And I mean, Lee, take your own impressions. But yeah, I couldn't convince anybody. I'm surprised we convinced you both to come on the show.
I was just going to say, yeah, maybe too many sharp cuts.
Yeah.
But I'm getting paid for this.
Like I talk to a recruit and I say, yeah, I think you're pretty good, but this is weak. You need to get better at this. And they're like, okay, see ya, bud. You don't think I'm that good.
I had an experience with this when I was being recruited. So I was told by one coach, like, yeah, you're probably not going to start. Like, you need to improve. You need to do all of these things. And every other team was showing me lineups with me in the starting lineup when I was going on my visits. And I actually committed to the coach who told me like that I wasn't going to be good enough to start my freshman year because I respected his honesty. But you don't see very many people doing that. And I think that was more of like a Paul Pavin influence kind of thing. I didn't end up going to that school because he ended up not coaching there and I left before I got there. But yeah, you go on these recruiting trips as athletes. And for a lot of athletes, NCAA, I don't know about OUA, you're walking into these things and they're like, here's a jersey with your name on it. This would be what your locker looks like. Look at these starting lineups with you in this position.
I mean, that would have worked on me.
And you're like, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm the best. And you want to do that. You want to go there.
Yeah, that would have been me for sure. But you were probably a little bit more intelligent. And I'm like, oh, who thinks I'm good? I'm coming. So, I mean, well, and that plays out. We never won. So, yeah. On to the point of support, though, because I feel like this is, it's kind of rare. We have 2 women coaches in Canadian volleyball at various levels here on the show, but we've struggled to find, many women to get on the show, which has been tough. As I mentioned earlier, our first female guest, unbelievable. I'm curious, the support piece, like when you finish playing, when you're nearing the end, are your coaches saying to you, hey, I think you'd make a great coach. Hey, you should get into coaching. Hey, this is something viable that makes sense for you. You should do this. Or is that just something you're like, I can't give it up. I need to stick around?
I think it's way too late and I think this is what coaches usually do is like, you're done. And then it's like, oh, hey, do you want to coach? But I think at that point, it's just kind of too late because the athlete already has their career path. They already have what they want to do. And then, I mean, I think to most logical people, it might be like, well, I'm already doing this. Why would I give it up to coach? Or like if you're trying to coach as like a profession, for example. But I think that lots of athletes, when they graduate, want to like help out and coach and give back to their community. I don't really know.
Well, is that what happened to you? Like, is coach saying to you like, hey, because you're still in coaching, you're still doing it obviously for a reason.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like, so with me, I was on the hiring committee of the last coach of Waterloo, like the current coach.
Big
and so
deal.
Chris, big deal alert. And the associate AD and Chris Lawson asked me if I want to be a coach. And then I was like, yeah, for sure, I'll coach someday, but that's not like a real job. People aren't coaches. And now,
yeah, Josh.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was in like, I think that was my 3rd year. So I kind of had 2 years to like figure out how you actually become a coach. But I think had that happened to me and I was graduating, I don't know if I'd be a coach as a job.
Okay. So like you think it was too late at that point? Because if you get that, people already had plans, and then you get jokers like Josh and I hopping in and coaching a random college team in Toronto. And, they don't even work at it for years. They just fall into it type thing.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Exactly, Josh.
I think you get into like an interesting thing where in Canada, there's not as many coaching jobs. So you don't see as many people trying to get those jobs because how are you going to pursue such a small pool? I think you see more athletes going into coaching in the States after graduating because there's so many jobs that pay well. Like, I mean, some of the top, even just volleyball, those volleyball coaches at the top schools are making 6 figures every year. Like, that's craziness. But I also think that you're talking to 2 female coaches. I can tell you that last year going to tournaments, I was often the only head female coach in a club tournament. Like, So
Yes.
I'm also looking at it from a representation standpoint. Like, how many of us had a female coach growing up? I know Tash did. I know I did not have a head coach as a female ever in my entire career. I never had a head female coach. And so, like, you start seeing it, like, young women, like, oh, all of these coaches are men, I think. And so if you don't see yourself, and you can see this in a lot of professions like STEM field, we're not going to get into that. Like, if you don't see yourself doing that and you don't see people like you doing it, why are you going to do it? And then as a professional, you see a lot of women falling out of coaching because it's really hard with the travel that you were talking about for your family. Like, you want to have, if anybody wants to have kids, it often falls to the woman to stay home with the children still. And that's fine. Like, that's great, but it's really, really hard to ask for a year's mat leave when you are coaching, because that job can be lost so quickly. I don't know if you heard of the story about the Arizona coach for the finals. She was breast pumping at halftime in the final of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
I mean, you're spitting some real shit.
Sorry.
No, I mean, it's some real stuff. And I mean, I've talked a little bit about this with some friends. I'm going to say it here. Like, you make a great point, and it's one that, because I coach club for a little bit, but I coach young boys. So when I'm in the gym with a group of guys and I'm seeing a bunch of dads and other dude coaches around, I'm not thinking twice about it, just because I don't, maybe I should be, but I'm not. But recently I coached a 16U girls team with my partner, Maria. She was the head coach. And we walk around the gym, and I obviously have a vested interest in her as a coach, a lead female coach. And I'm looking around, I'm going like, does nobody have a women coach on any of these teams? Like, what the heck's going on? That's number one. Number two is I am looking at who is the coach, and it's a creepy old dude. It's the creepy old dude. Why? What's going on? Listen, even if it's a 26-year-old dude there and he's going, yeah, I'm trying to be a coach, so I got to coach whoever I can. I'm going, dude, I get it. You want to do it? Go for it. Do what you can. But it's the creepy old dude, and I'm going, what the hell's going on here?
It's so shocking. Like, me and my good friend Marissa were coaching together last year, like two, I guess I'm still young. I'm feeling old, but young females. And we were playing against this team with like this ragtag crew of older men coaching these young women. And I was like, who are you? Like, I feel like I know a lot of volleyball people,
Like,
and
who
I
the hell are
cannot
you?
figure out where these people came from. Like, how did you end up in volleyball? And I'm looking around trying, and like, I feel like when I see another head female coach at these tournaments, and I'm just like, yeah, hey, like, what's up? Because it's so lonely. Like, it's like a boys club.
Yeah, and I am fully on board with any woman coach who wants to chirp the shit out of an opposing creepy old dude coach. Full points. Absolutely, we need more of that.
I don't know. It's such a problem. Gosh, I could go on, but it's just like, even I was running a tournament and I had to do a tiebreaker, and I had all the dads standing around me questioning my math. I have a math degree, sir.
Oh, I was
like,
about to say, how's your math? But it sounds like it's
Like,
pretty effing good.
what's happening?
Yeah, like, you got a math. You should have just, like, yeah, you shouldn't have, but it would have been great if you're like, hey, boys, do you not see this fucking diploma? Back the F off here, boys. Beat it, punks. Like, put them in their place. It's my favorite thing here. We talk about chirps a lot on Sharp Cuts because, like, if there's anybody who needs to be chirped, it's some of these, yeah.
Volley dads.
Volley dads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
But in a
we had my volley
female-dominated
dad on the
sport.
show, and we chirped
I
him a
know.
lot. So,
It's a female-dominated sport with very few females entering back into club coaching. Like, you guys are saying that there's a lot of people giving back, and like, we have a wonderful club, like so many coaches, but there's not. I look around and I don't see that many people from my age group and younger getting back into it. And I don't know if it's because of the time or because they still want their weekends to play. Like, I don't identify with that because, like, I just don't play. But I don't know.
I think it's because they just don't know what it looks like. Like, we just don't give them opportunities when they're younger. So then they graduate and we say, hey, you should come back and coach. And then they're like, yeah, okay. And then they don't, because they get busy doing other things, versus if you just, I don't know, if you let your athletes or enable them, empower them to start coaching when they're younger and let them fall in love with it. It's fun, and really put a priority on it. Like I was just organizing a beach volleyball program, and we got a list of coaches together, and it was like all men, Natasha, pretty much. And I was like, okay, so we need to get some women coaching in here, and like, let's get some of our other athletes to coach the younger kids. And we're like super lucky here. All the coaches are so supportive of that. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's get some more women into coaching beach and whatever. But I don't know. Sometimes people just don't think about it unless somebody brings it up.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like it's something I would have never thought about had I not been in the room with somebody who, you know, I have a vested interest in doing it, and I'm watching it, and I'm there kind of live seeing it. It's not something that I'm thinking about too often, right? Like because if you don't see it, if it's not there, if it's not in front of you, like I'm sure it's the same with ex-players who they move on to other things, and so they're out of the community. They're, you know, they still like volleyball, but you're not there every day. You're not seeing what it's like, and so, you know, out of sight, out of mind type of thing. I get that even now sometimes, and we run this show and a YouTube channel and coaching and all that, and it's still tough to really see and get the full sense of what's going on, let alone without COVID when everybody's stuck inside anyways. Holy.
For sure. Yeah, it's super interesting. Like, I think this is the first year that I've really, really noticed, like this is the first year I've been on a staff that hasn't had another female member on it. Like U of A was almost all women on the staff there, which was really cool. And then at Niagara, I had female assistants there. And then here it's me and all men. And sometimes I'm standing in the gym and I'm like, whoa.
Okay.
Weird.
Okay. So we need to get some chirps rolling for your colleagues there. We need to let them know, hey, woman in the room, like, what are you guys even thinking here? Like, I'm down for that.
You might need to help me off the show because I'm not very good at that.
Well, listen, a good starter. What are you doing here? What do you think you're doing here?
On sharp, I don't know. Becky asked me and I said yes.
No.
No.
You need to go up to Ryan and say, or your other coaching staff, and be like, what are you doing here?
Sorry, my acting was too good. I feel like I was... How dare you come on this show? What are you even doing here?
What am I doing here?
No, you say that to that guy.
Okay, well, I mean, he's a pretty nice guy, so...
He is.
I know, that's the thing. I feel like he'd just be like, I'm so sorry.
You should be. No.
I'll hire another woman.
Use your power.
Yes, obviously, all of my assistant coach power that I wield.
Well, so can we expect both of you to be kind of rising up and being leaders of massive programs, or like that? I feel like that should be happening pretty soon, right?
Becky?
I will not coach university or college. It's not in my plan. I'm happy to continue being very involved with the Preds program. I help run the beach program. I will coach teams every year. I'm part of our executive. So I feel like I'm doing my part, but I just don't have any desire to get into the university stuff. I'll leave that to Tash. I'm a teacher. Like, I don't want to leave that path to change again so quickly. But yeah, but we'll leave it to Tash.
Yeah, hopefully that's the plan. But it's hard. It's really challenging to be a coach in general, and it's challenging to be a female coach for sure. There's only so many jobs in Canada, and I really want to coach Canadian volleyball.
I get it. Next time you're on a board to decide who hiring the head coach, the recommendation is me. And by me, I mean you.
We're hiring. Oh.
By me, I mean you, not me. You.
I'm bad at podcasting.
So are we. It's fine. We don't even know what we're doing.
Nobody's good at it.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Well,
No.
That's a feel-good moment for us, I think. I'm inspired. Josh, do we have anything else we want to talk about? Because, I mean, we've been covering some ground.
We've covered a lot of ground, and not to ruin anybody's day, because that was a good feel-good moment, but I want to get into one more debate
Let's ruin
here.
the day.
And this,
We got to ruin
let's ruin it. let's ruin it. Let's get into, when we talk about understanding volleyball, I think one thing you have to understand right away is there's some difference between the men's and women's game. And let's get down to it. Like, why do you guys run step around instead of C balls? Like, why are little things like, why do most players in the OUA float serve instead of spin serve, Natasha? What's up with that? Like, why are there so many differences between the men's and women's game?
Yeah, good question. Becky, you want to go first? You want me to?
I might say something that people don't like, so why don't you go first?
Okay. What was your first question about the step around?
The general theme is just, why is the game so different between the genders?
We coasting.
Yes, I'd like to address some specific points. One, we do run C balls. So we'll run sometimes we'll run step and sometimes we'll run C ball. So we do that. And second,
way to snap back with authority on this one. Well, actually,
we run C balls all the time, Josh. Check your facts, Spad.
Yeah. And second, really cool. I like the question about float serve versus spin serve. So, like, something that I look at all the time is in the men's game, there's a lot of hand passing, and there's like almost none of that in the women's game, which is super interesting to me. And Becky, you might have some thoughts on this. I'd be interested in it because I think that like women can hand pass, and I don't know if it's that they think that they're not strong enough, or if it's that the net height is lower, so it's like the angle isn't there for them to be able to pass. But I think that's a really interesting question. Like, we try to get a lot of our athletes to hand pass if they can, especially because men always hand pass float serves, and all women do is float. Almost, I shouldn't say all. A lot of the time, women float serve. So it's really interesting.
So I think that the net height thing plays a major role. So I don't know if you guys have ever played on a women's net with women serving, but that float serve comes really fast on a lower women's net.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you talk about at the highest level, you're seeing women who are all over 6 feet playing on a net that really isn't that high. Like, I mean, I get for like a recreational level to be playing at that height of net, but like I've been hit in the face hard by some big women. And like, let me tell you, I wish that the net was a few inches higher at that moment. But like, I think the net height plays a massive role in the differences. Absolutely. So the serving women's float serves can come so fast over that low net.
Yeah.
And we don't generate the same power on a ball with our spin serve as men do. I'm a big believer of like, why would a woman spin serve if it's not just like a freaking hammer? Like Micah Hancock is an American setter who just has a ridiculous spin serve. She should spin serve. Most women, it's just not that effective.
Yeah.
Because you can't generate the curve or the speed that you need.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to kind of take it in a different direction, pull a bit of a May move here. I think the only differences between the two games is the culture around them. Like, I think it's volleyball, bump set spike, right? Like, why do women run a lot of step arounds and men don't? Are you kidding me? I'd love to see a big dude out of the middle run a step around and absolutely crush it. Why does nobody do that? Because we're stupid. Why do men always hand pass? Well, because nobody wants to spend their time actually getting good at forearm passing because they're lazy asses. I only forearm pass when I play, never hand pass, just because the way I was brought up. So, like, what? Was I any better or worse than the hand passer guy? No, I just did it differently. So, like, the game is different, I think, because we choose it to be different.
Yeah. It's not allowed at younger levels.
We've been
ways that
we've been handcuffed.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. They don't call it that, but that's the crush volleyball rule. I'm going to throw that out there, Josh. I'm taking credit for that for that rule as the team who went
You're
through.
the reason why
everybody's
we can't hand
passing.
pass till 16U?
Everyone's hand passing
I
at
hate
14,
that rule.
15, 16, and then you get crush volleyball coming along who's only forearm passing everything, and you realize you got a bunch of idiots who can't forearm pass at university. It's like, oh, we got to fix that.
Yeah, but not allowing hand passing is not the way to fix that.
Yeah, getting better
Being a better
coaches
coach.
absolutely
Teach your
is.
kids how
But
to-
I don't know about you, but we just talked about how that's a tough task.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can't create good coaches, so we'll just change the rules.
I mean, I respect it. because there's a lot of dumbasses out there. So if you could take the power out of the dumbass's hand, do it 100% of the time.
I so disagree with that. Like, I just think it's terrible. Like, I think it's like the worst rule.
Well, I mean, then what you get is people who can't hand pass because they do or can't forehand pass because the hand passing's way easier. And then in the women's game, like you're saying, the way people do things is it doesn't even matter anyways.
Yeah, I think it's more of like a confidence issue from the young age groups for women. So like women's upper body strength doesn't develop super early, minus a handful. Like, I do not hand pass. I mean, let's be honest, I don't pass at all. But I don't hand pass because I never feel strong enough to push it where I need to get it. And my thumbs are always a mess. Like, I always got jammed thumbs from stuff. So.
But if you were doing that younger, you might be more confident later on.
That wasn't a rule when I was young.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but I think that coaches don't typically encourage their teams to hand pass. Like, how much hand passing do you work on in 12U?
You can't, because then they're going to get called on and you're going to lose the point.
Now you can't, but back when I played 15U, before this rule was in, every team we played only hand passed. They put big dudes up on the attack line and hand passed literally everything.
This just seems like a coaching fail on both ends then.
I agree. I hate these dumbass coaches. And I really don't like people thinking that, like, the games are that different, like the men's and women's. Like, you got women who can absolutely pound it.
Men and women are different.
Oh, they are, for sure. For sure.
Like, men's game has a little more termination. It's more of a termination game, in my opinion. Like, you don't see as many longer rallies. In the women's game, you see a lot more rallying. Even at the higher levels, like you'll see a lot of more termination on the women's side too, but you still see those rallies that you don't see as often in the men's game.
Yeah, I think if you're talking like internationally, like at the very highest level, that may hold true. I don't know the stats, but anecdotally, from watching university players here in Canada, I can tell you there are many games where the women terminate far more than the men do. I have sat through a number of Ontario University games where it's the men dig, set a high ball, tip over because I'm weak and scared. Pass, set, tip over a back row pipe. Oh, they dug it up. Oh, don't set. Oh, see ball, tip because I'm scared. Like, that is the most boring thing to me ever.
Well, you're only embarrassed by being blocked.
Oh, yeah, that too. Like, oh, why? Because ego's all wrapped up into it. Cut the ego. Let's see some dudes run some step arounds, and let's see some women crush those C balls, because I know there's some big units out there who can absolutely crush it.
I love a C ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Beck, you probably hammered a few C balls in your life.
Absolutely.
Better than a pipe for me, for sure.
Oh.
I don't know. I got weird stuff going on. What position am I? Am I supposed to, where am I supposed to be hitting from? I don't know.
Who cares, really, to be honest? It's just a game after all. Oh, sorry. Is that blasphemous to say on this show, Josh? What have I done?
It's just a game to you and I, Garrett, but to Becky it was a living for a long time, getting yelled at in Polish.
I tried to have it be my living, but I ended up losing $50,000 trying to make it happen, and it didn't happen. So that hits close to home.
Josh, your thought of the differences between men's and women's. Do you think that they're different?
I think everything that was said was correct, not to turn this into a sharp cuts pillow fight, but I think men and women are different, so that naturally draws to it. But I think Garrett's point of we magnify it and we say it's different, like, oh, women can't hand pass, so now club coaches are just like, why are we going to waste, I only get them 4 hours a week, why am I going to invest time into that when, like, at the highest levels they can't or don't or whatever the reason is. Like, I think at the highest level, the game is very similar. Like, I see a lot of women's teams running a faster pipe, like the C stuff that Autumn Bailey was able to do at university, like that was men's speed level stuff that they were doing. Like, it does get pretty similar at a certain point, but I think the conversations, for whatever reason, we treat it like it's totally different, and I don't know. I haven't figured out why. Like, I think, yeah, the termination thing is, I think it's completely true. I don't even think that's opinion. Like, I think the women have better ball control. I see it on the beach. I think they have way better ball control, but they don't hit to terminate. Where there's guys indoor, Garrett's, where the rally's over as soon as so-and-so gets set. It just might be out or it might be a kill. Like,
yeah. Like as soon as so-and-so gets set, or you talk Are you talking about me? Because if
don't
so,
think
I
you-
agree with you.
I don't think you made that many errors. I don't remember you making that many errors.
Yeah, I got dug a lot. You're talking about termination. I got dug a ton.
I'm big on termination in beach and indoor. Forget those shots. Just hit the ball hard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Go ahead.
my least favorite, to bring it back to the coaches discussion, my least favorite line is, oh, I like coaching women because I find the game more interesting. I hate that line so much. Has anyone else ever heard somebody say that? Maybe I'm the only one asking coaches why they're coaching women and not men.
Yeah, I was like, what's more interesting?
We're all thinking it, Becky. We're all thinking it.
Okay, yes. I was not thinking it, but now I can't not think about it. Holy shit.
Come on, that was your reaction when they gave you that answer, Garrett. That had to be. That's
For
where
a
my
different
mind went.
reason. My reaction was like, what are you talking about? It's more interesting. It's the same. It's volleyball. What do you mean? You coach volleyball. Like, come on. But now I'm thinking, I get why you might think it's more interesting.
I mean, it's different because young women react differently to receiving coaching than young men do in some situations. Like, I mean, I don't think that I change how I coach, but I know that some people give that a lot of thought, and I don't think that thought needs to be there as much. Like, I think that you coach some kids or some athletes, and that's it. There you go. You coached. Good job.
Yeah.
Everybody come coach.
I know we're running out of time, but let's pull on that point real quickly because I've actually heard that as like a person who did the coaching levels and is a learning facilitator. A lot of people think the general theme is to women, you need to communicate better, they need to understand the why, where guys, apparently you don't need to have as much filter to yell at them. Like that's the stereotype, at least, that I've heard in the coaching community.
I was yelled at relentlessly. Like, I turned out just fine.
Well, and I think that like women don't care if you yell at them. Well, yell at them if what you're saying is about volleyball and you're not yelling at them. Like I think women and men are the same in that. Like if you're whatever you're coaching, if you're saying something useful, then okay, great. Not that I'm yelling at people really, but if you're saying something useful and productive and trying to help them, then awesome.
So I'll throw this question. In your master's in coaching, because you are educated, you're a master of coaching, so we should all listen to you. Are they talking about the differences between approaching men and women, or is that glazed over completely, which I think it probably should be? And Josh, in the coaching levels for your certification, do they bring it up?
It's not like textbook. Sorry, Tasha, you can go right after. It's not in the textbook, Gary, but I'm telling you, it's in the discussions that, the sports are similar, but there are some differences. And this is the biggest difference I see coming up in the discussion is the way to communicate to both genders.
I would say it's more of athletes are more individually different than men are different than women. So it's like I need to communicate with you, Josh, a certain way, with you, Becky, a certain way, and with Garrett, I may never know how I should communicate with you. I don't know. So like,
we're not off to a good start.
We're still trying to figure it out.
It takes work to figure out how you should communicate with people. Like we talk about this all the time. Like we take for granted that because we all speak English on our volleyball team, on like the team that I'm with, we take for granted that everybody hears what we're saying and hears the same thing, but that's not necessarily true, right? And so it's more of like an individual, like, are you getting this? And how do I need to talk to you? Versus like, girls, you need to be nicer to them and more positive, and boys, you can be super negative and they're fine. Like, we need to get rid of those stereotypes because they're just not true.
I think it's suspicious when a coach is nice to me. I don't get that. Like, why aren't you yelling at me?
Shoot, that's not maybe the best.
Yeah, is that?
All done.
Oh no.
Well,
Paul needs to come on the show and defend himself. We need like another father-sibling combination on the show, Garrett. We're 8 episodes in. We've had 2. I think we need the 3rd here.
I'm throwing out the invitation to get the full Pavin clan on the show with the full May clan. I think that would be a hilarious conversation about dynamic and family in the sport. But I'm happy to end on an intelligent note with some info from the master of coaching, because Josh, you and I know nothing really about what we're talking about. I say you and I, you are a professional coach, so I'll lump you in, but feel free to defend
What was
yourself.
your dad's quote? I don't know what I'm doing, but I do what I know. But
Oh, that was a terrible
I don't know what
quote.
I'm
Don't
doing.
even- yeah. Oh, gosh. See, now
Nailed it.
we've dipped. This is how we usually end the show. We just go until
Oh, I lost it
something
for us? Yeah, I
stupid
lost
happens.
it
We
for
just descend into chaos. So, Josh, why don't you save us, man, from this? It's been great having you two on the show. I'd love to have you back. I feel like we could talk for hours, but we don't have that much time, unfortunately. So, Josh, anything we want to say before we sign off?
Well, who's ever listening to this other than Paul Papin, thank you for making it this far in the show. We definitely appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, even better. So you can catch every Monday on Yes Guy Gaming. You can catch our show here. We have new guests, or maybe we'll have returning guests because these two were awesome. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, we're also on Spotify, Podbean, whatever you get your podcast, you can get this one. And Garrett, another great show. And I think it's because of the guest. It's not really the host, but we won't tell people that.
We won't.
Thanks for having me. And
Thank you both for coming on the show, and thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you next time.